Hey guys, what's up? It's Panzer Dragon, and today we're going to be doing a video on patch 7.8. And y'all might be thinking, this is the patch where all the new items are coming out, but those changes are actually coming out in patch 7.9, so you won't be seeing them in this patch, but you will be seeing champions like Xayah and Rakan in this patch, which will definitely be an interesting release because they have synergy with each other. And also Udyr is getting a small rework, as well as a few other changes. But yeah, so this won't be the big patch you're expecting for the mid-season update. But also, before we start this video will be sponsored by Pro Guides. Check them out for all your rank game needs, and you can talk to them if you need some help with League. Now, with all that being said, let's get started with this video. So first up, I want to talk about Rakan and Xayah. But let's go with Xayah, since she's going to be the AD carry and the girl who's going to be shitting on people. Basically, my thoughts about her when I played her on the PB is she's really strong. Like, her passive is basically a mini Twitch ult. Like, other enemies will take 50% damage, and also the feather, which you can get a lot of if you have a lot of attack speed. And CDR will set you up for a very nice E. Also, her Q has very nice base damage. But it's kind of like Caitlyn's Q, where after the first target, people who get hit will only take 50% damage, so be careful there. And finally, her W gives her a 20% attack damage steroid for 4 seconds, plus giving her movement speed so she can like move around and kite a bit, since she doesn't really have any escapes, which makes her pretty slippery in team fights. But finally, her E is the one where you have to worry about. Basically, if there's a bunch of feathers behind you, you're going to take a lot of damage. Although I see the formula now, it's after the first feather being hit, it's then 90% and then 80%, and then you get the idea until you get to 10%. So basically, won't one-shot you. But I mean, if you're just walking up into Xayah into team fights and there's a bunch of feathers behind you, you have to be very careful because she can root you at any time. But of course, if you're kiting away from Xayah, then her E is kind of useless, but you can essentially think of it as a Callista E. But it also gives hard CC, so it's a little bit scarier, but well, her execute is way worse. And finally, her ultimate, which I think is so good for outplaying people because it leaves you invulnerable for 1 second. Although the base damage on it is shit like Quinn's ult, but it's more for utility, and I mean, you can move around while in the air. But also, it sets you up with 5 feathers in front of you, so it's really good for initiating if you need to, and then catch someone with your E for the root. But I mean, yeah, if you can predict the Malphite out, you can definitely use that and avoid using your flash. And basically, yeah, I think with her kit, I think she'll be a very strong AD carry. Probably going to be 100% Ben, unless Rakan is not with her, then, well, she might still be pretty good, but we'll have to see. Although now, when we talk about Rakan, I think he's way better with Xayah because, well, first off, let's talk about his E. So basically, the range is doubled when he uses his E on Xayah, which I think is pretty strong. I mean, Xayah's W gives him the effects as well, but that's only really good in laning phase and when you're trading. Yeah, actually it's really good for trading. Since you get 30% attack speed and movement speed plus 20% more damage, also they can recall together, so one can recall while the other like screws around and then recalls with them, which is pretty cool for the synergy. And I think there's just a lot of gimmicks between them, which feels like you have to play them together like every time. Xayah maybe be able to be played alone, but I feel like, Rakan, the support, should maybe have his E range nerfed for when he casts it on Xayah, but increase the range just a little bit because it's actually a little bit too short right now. That's just my opinion though, but otherwise that's the only synergy he has with Xayah. But I think his kit overall is really good. His Q has really good base damage, also healing is nice, and it's AoE heal, think Taric. But of course it's only people around him when he touches someone. But also it's a single target ability and it's kind of hard to hit in lane. But if you hit it, it's very rewarding, so, always hit your skill shots. And finally, your W, just think of Alistair WQ combo, but it's a skill shot, and there's a little delay, so you can actually flash out of it if you feel like he's trying to set up for a gank. But the AoE on it is pretty good, as well as chaining it with his ultimate, which I find so fucking useful because it's a very good zoning tool. I mean, if he runs into you, you get charmed and CC'd, and you don't want to get, CC'd if you're a carry or whatever. But yeah, you can get a 2 to 2.5 second duration CC combo if you land your W and R, which is pretty easy, and it's also AoE. And also you can soak a bunch of damage, and then if Xayah or your teammates are around, you can just E back to them and then shield them as well as getting out of harm. Now, in conclusion, I could see Xayah being a regular AD carry and just being, pretty average with the other AD carries. Same goes with Rakan, but when they're together, they're like power level spikes by like 1.3 or 5. I don't know. They're they're just so good together. I can't see them landing without each other, or maybe in solo queue all you have to do is ban one or the other and then they won't be played. But I think in solo queue you're gonna have to ban one of them, or at least, or this will be really funny, you have to pick one or the other if the enemy already has the other, so they can't get the combo. But yeah, that's just what I think is gonna happen. I think they're really strong together. Like, I think they're OP, but when they're not with each other, they're pretty mediocre. Well, at least Rakan is. Next up, let's talk about Aatrox. So right now in the meta, well, he's not really a meta top laner, but I have seen him maybe once in the past month or so. I know he's better with the little mini rework he got, but I think he maybe needs more than just this buff. But in this patch, he's actually getting a buff on his W and his passive. Basically, his W's healing has been increased by 1.5% of his missing health, and now his passive can proc on monsters rather than champions, so you know, he can be a jungler, I guess. But also, attack speed has been increased by 10% for each rank, so maybe you'll see him in the jungle. Not really sure, but it would be pretty interesting. But of course, the jungle is a bit weird because you need early game skirmishers, and in high elo you honestly see about like 4 junglers like Lissandra and Elise, and yeah, you know how it is. But maybe in the top lane you might see him a little bit more. I don't know, this champion's weird. Next up, Amumu is kind of getting changed, even though they buffed him for whatever reason. I mean, he's now a god in silver elo and all the low elos, and essentially his passive is no longer affected by resistances, but they've lowered it by 5%, so you know it's a buff against tanks, but against squishies it's a nerf. Also, W has been decreased by 1% at the max rank, so you'll be doing 1% less damage, and you'll probably be maxing out this skill less now. Like, I think some people were considering maxing out W after E, but now you have to max out Q because all the base damage is gone. But your AP ratio on this ability has been increased by 1% for every 100 AP. Which means you might see AP Amumu and yeah, see the one-shot Amumu. I don't know, maybe not in high elo, but maybe lower elo you'll definitely see him a lot. Who knows. Either way, I'll probably never see him in my elo, but lower elo, he's definitely still gonna wreak havoc in silver and gold and bronze. Next up, Lissandra is getting a buff. So her passive cooldown is going down. That's not really useful in team fights and stuff like that. And also they're increasing the AP ratio of her Q by 5%. Like, that's a little bit weird. Like, basically this buff is so useless, I don't even know why they did it. You'll probably never see her still. Yeah, unless other AP mages are being nerfed, then yeah, you might see her, but of course, nope, haven't seen her in a long time. Next up, Malzahar is actually getting a nerf to his voidlings. This is really interesting. So the base armor of him has been lowered by 2, which is for bot lane, I think. But his voidlings have been lowered by 1 hit point, so now instead of 3, it's 2. But the bounty has been lowered by 5 gold, which doesn't matter. But the thing is, this is huge because if you see Malzahar cast his W, you can auto the voidlings using your support and it'll be gone. And so what they're trying to do is nerf support Malzahar and for him to not be as oppressive, but I don't really think he's that good of a support as he has already received some nerfs, and I think in his support role he has about a 48% win rate. So yeah, I mean, I guess right now he's just gutted and useless, and I don't think he'll ever see play in the bot lane after this. Maybe in competitive, but for solo queue, probably not. It's kind of like Ezreal. Pretty shit. Why would you play Ezreal when you can play Lucian? So, you know, why would you play Malzahar when you can play Lulu? You know, it's kind of like that. But yeah, I think this champion will be gutted after these nerfs. Now, speaking of champions that I play, which I actually never said, Nautilus is actually getting a nerf. I'm actually pretty sad about this one. I might actually main a new top lane champion because they're lowering the mana regen growth by 0.04 and it used to be 0.14, so you know, that's 1/3 of less mana regen. And they're increasing the mana cost of his E by 10 at all ranks, so boy. That means I can't spam E as much, and I might have to build like Iceborne now. Well, you used to be able to just go Sunfire and Spear Visage and into like whatever you need after, but maybe you might need a mana item. Maybe you might need 2 Doran rings instead of 1 Doran ring, because I know you just need 1 Doran ring and you can basically spam E's all day. But with these mana cost changes coming out, ooh, I'm sad. Maybe I'll have to main a new top lane. Maybe I'll go back to Swain or Malphite, who knows. And next up, we're going to be talking about Shen. So this champion in competitive play definitely has seen a lot of play. In solo queue, not that much, but he still sees some play. But basically, they're giving his Q more damage as they are adding base damage to it. 15 at level 1, but at level 16 you get 40. So 120 damage extra at level 16. Alright, that's a little bit, but they are now removing the empowered damage to non-champions, so you won't be jungling Shen anymore. But also it'll be hard for him to push the wave a little bit without Tiamat or Sunfire. This is directed towards competitive play, of course, and they want him to, you know, just push a little bit less faster. They've also lowered the energy cost of his E by 30, and the width has been increased slightly, so 2 buffs, you know, towards PvP, but his ultimate, that's getting a nerf. Because the cooldown at level 1 is now 200 instead of 180, but also at level 16 it's 160 instead of 120, so you're going to be making less plays in the late game and you gotta wait for that cooldown to come up and you'll just have to stall until it's up. Also, the base shield, holy shit, that's actually getting, I mean, levels 6 and 11, alright, 200 less at level 11 and like 75 less, that's alright, but you know, late game, it's not giving you 850 shield anymore, so you can't protect your carries as hard, and I mean, 325 less shield on your R, that seems like a big number. So essentially, you're just going to be using it to initiate and make those frontline plays with your frontliner, but if you see your teammate dying, it's still kind of going to be there because of missing health. But yeah, overall, I feel like this alt nerf will kind of make him shittier in solo queue. You'll probably still see him in competitive play, but solo queue, I don't think so. The cooldown nerf is just awful. So yeah, win rate definitely going down. And finally, for the last champion who is getting a change and a small rework is going to be Udyr, which is really cool for his Q and W. Essentially, all of his stances are going to be the same mana cost because now the mana cost of his abilities lower by 1 each level, so you can rotate throughout your 4 abilities and not have to worry about mana costs. But now his Q is getting a rework, as now his basic attacks no longer deal 15% bonus AD damage, but now his Q is essentially the same as his Phoenix stance, where every 3rd hit he'll do the DOT effect, or the first hit upon activation. Of course, they're now lowering the base damage of it, but that's just the base damage. They're not nerfing the AD ratio, so hey, 80 less damage, but a longer lasting DOT. I guess I'll take it. So if you stick on someone for a long time, you'll essentially be doing more sustained damage, but less burst damage. It also says that if a target is affected by Tiger Strike, a new application of Tiger Strike will deal the remaining damage instantly. And I tested it on PvE. I didn't really notice it, but I could be wrong. You know what? Maybe the damage is so minimal I didn't really notice. Because it seemed like my auto attacks were just overriding the DOT, so that could be my bad. But I'm definitely interested to see if Tiger Udyr will come into play. But I don't think so, not in high elo. He's kind of garbage right now, so yeah, not with this buff. But I do like this next change on the turtle stance where it makes tank Udyr pretty interesting, because instead of having lifesteal, it says Udyr's first attack and every 3rd attack after heals him for 2.5% of his maximum health, and you know that 2.5% is increased by 1% for every percent of Udyr's missing health, so you know, potentially you could be healing for 4.9% of your maximum health if you have, you know, like 10 health left. But so definitely this is a buff for tank Udyr. Unless you're playing AD Udyr or whatever, then it's a nerf because you want lifesteal, but who really plays that, right? So yeah, with these changes on Udyr, I don't think he'll be meta. I think he'll still be shit. Maybe the W change might be really powerful, but probably not. But yeah, that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys did like this video, make sure to leave a like, and if you didn't, make sure to subscribe. Anyways, I am Malzahar Dragon, and I'll see you guys next time.